Hey folks, Jonathan Phoenix here. Before you guys get into the episode, I want to tell you about an upcoming event at which I am going to be a guest. Atomicon, May 4th and 5th, 2024 at the North Charleston Candlewood Suites, 2177 North Woods Boulevard. Atomicon is celebrating its 10th year as the All Types of Media and Arts convention here in Charleston. There will be sci-fi, fantasy, and paranormal guests, along with a film festival and a cosplay contest. So, I'll see you there. Go to atomicon.org and get your passes now. Let Me Tell You a Story is a product of Carolina Storyteller, starring Jonathan Phoenix, written, produced, and directed by Jonathan Phoenix, edited and recorded by Jonathan Phoenix, and horribly marketed by Jonathan Phoenix. Man, I gotta hire a staff. If you'd like to support the podcast, you can go to patreon.com/Carolina Storyteller and subscribe to get exclusive content and all kinds of other neat stuff. We even have merchandise coming. Anyway, sit back and enjoy the show. Good evening, folks. This is Let Me Tell You a Story, and I am Jonathan Phoenix, the Carolina Storyteller. Hope you guys have had a great week. I'm glad to have you back with me. Tonight's story is going to kind of be a 2-in-1. You see, it's something I've experienced, but it's a phenomenon that's known throughout the United States, one that has befuddled drivers on roads from South Carolina to California and from Texas all the way up to Alaska. I'm talking about, of course, the elusive woman in white, the spooky, ethereal, beautiful creature that men see when they're driving alone on the highways. Anyway, sit back and let me tell you the story. It was September 13th, 2005, when much of the world was introduced to a legend that many people already knew. The television show Supernatural. Sam and Dean encountered a spirit of a young woman wandering the highway who tried to kill them because they were promiscuous men, only they weren't being promiscuous at the time. But that was a fictional television show. The woman in white is a very real thing that men have seen on highways for years. Typically, the story goes that a man is driving along on a dark highway when suddenly he spies the young lady in a white dress, or white nightgown perhaps. Sometimes it's raining, sometimes it's cold, but she's always barefoot and disheveled and walking along the side of the road. So, of course, being a gentleman, he pulls over to give her a ride and ask her if there's anywhere she can go. Typically, the woman directs him in one direction or another, and he starts to drive. And eventually, she's just gone. Now, there are twists and turns to the story, of course. But that's the general tale. But the question is who is the woman? Well, let's answer that next. The most common legend for the woman in white is that she was a mother whose husband cheated on her. And in her distress, she murdered her children and then took her own life. Usually some way on the roadside, and she prowls for men who happen to be promiscuous in an effort to kill them. Now, this is the story that was on Supernatural, but actually that's not always the case for women in white. Sometimes they're girls who were lovesick, unrequited love, or women who died of illness. Sometimes their ghosts actually just haunt the graveyard supposedly near where they were buried. The only thing that they really truly have in common is their appearance. Always pale-skinned, always in a white gown or dress, always looking disheveled and alone and barefoot. Those are the trappings of the woman in white, hence why she's called the woman in white. So now on to my story. I must have been 23, 24 maybe, probably 23. It's been a while now. I was working part-time at a Domino's Pizza, same restaurant my dad worked part-time at. We're both delivery drivers. I just moved out to Berkeley County. I was trying to find a job in emergency services. So this was all I was doing to get money, was delivering pizzas. And it was a particularly rainy day, and I was driving out towards Pinopolis, just outside of Monk's Corner. And as I was going down Pinopolis Road, just past this graveyard, I saw this dark-haired, pale woman in a white nightgown. It's pouring down rain, but she's walking along the side of the road, just getting drenched, and there's no other cars to be found. There's nothing really around for a quarter of a mile. So I quickly delivered the pizza, and I turned back, and she was near a friend of mine's house. So as I was going back, I remember driving back and looking for her. She was nowhere to be seen. So I popped over to my friend's house real quick, and I asked if he knew anything about it, and he said no, he hadn't seen anyone, but he'd keep an eye out. It was a couple of days later. I was going down the same road, and again, it was pouring down rain. And again, I saw this girl. She was just before the graveyard. She was walking, and she kind of looked over at me as I passed. I went and delivered the pizza, and I came back, and I wanted to see if she needed a ride or if she needed help. But again, she wasn't there. So again, my buddy who lived right next to the graveyard, I stopped by his place, and I went, "Hey, man, you're not going to believe what I saw." Again. Only this time he had a story to tell me. The story my friend told me was of a young girl who had maybe 5-6 years prior gotten pregnant while in high school. After several months, she wasn't able to hide it from her parents anymore, and when they found out, they disowned her and kicked her out. Weren't exactly the greatest parents. She was forced to live with her boyfriend, who really didn't have that many options and wasn't that great of a guy. He was abusive, and during one of his bouts of abuse, she suffered a miscarriage and lost the child. This weighed heavily on her, sending her into a bout of depression. It was during this bout of depression that she walked from her home along Highway 52 North to the Telrace Canal Bridge. And it was upon this bridge that she took off everything but her white slip, climbed up to the top railing, and then stepped off, falling into the water below. Berkeley County Rescue apparently recovered her body, but it was too late to save her. She was gone. And the young girl was apparently buried in the very graveyard that I passed, going to and from Pinopolis. And it seemed that on the anniversary of her death, which was only a few days past the death of her child, she could be seen walking along the road when it rained, depressed and lost. It's been over 20 years since I had that experience, and it still sits with me. I've gone down that road at that same time of year and got to see the woman in white again, but I've heard from time to time people who have seen this young, pale girl with dark hair and what looks like a white dressing gown just walking along the side of the road down by the cemetery. And every time I hear somebody tell a story, it sends a chill down my spine because I think of my encounter. And I think of what she must be thinking. I wonder if she's forever cursed to walk that road. And I wonder what will happen when somebody finally does give the woman in white a ride home. Well, folks, that's our story for this week. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope it is a great start to your spooky season as it's coming closer. We're getting closer and closer to Halloween and all the fun stuff that's going to be going on. If you guys like the show, please remember, like, subscribe, leave me a rating. That is the best way to get this show out for other people to see it and help the show grow. If you guys want to support, you can go to patreon.com/Carolina Storyteller. And, of course, show your support and get lots of exclusive stuff. And CarolinaStoryteller.com is now live. You can order my books, and merchandise is going to be available real soon. Again, thanks for listening, and I'll see you next week.